I came to you in weakness, in fear, and much trembling, so that my message might not come from human wisdom, but from the power of God. Those are the words we heard St. Paul tell us tonight in the second reading. I think that's a powerful statement for us to meditate upon. St. Paul reminds us that we all have talents and gifts and opportunities, but we also have weaknesses. And if every one of us is honest, we would certainly say, yes, I have weaknesses. And Paul reminds us that with the power and grace and help of God, all things are possible. There's a story that I think might help us realize that. It was written in the year 2001 in February in the Houston Chronicle by Jack Ryder. And it was an article about Isaac Perlman, the violinist. Perlman, as a child, had polio. And from the childhood days, he wore braces on both legs, and he walked with a crutch under each arm. When he came out on stage to perform, he would walk very slowly and very painfully, but majestically across the stage until he reached his chair. And then he would sit down and he would unclasp the braces on his legs, put one foot behind him and one forward, and then he would pick up the violin and begin to play, nodding to the conductor. But one night in 1995, when he was on stage, he began to play, and just after a few bars, one of the strings of the violin broke. And they said it was so loud, you could hear it through the whole auditorium, that it just split off of the violin. Well, people were thinking he had two choices. He'd have to put the braces back on and walk off to get another string or find another violin, or maybe somebody would have to bring it to him. But that did not happen. He sat there, closed his eyes. In a few moments, he nodded to the conductor to begin. And with that, he began to play the violin with 3 strings. He played with such passion and such purity and such marvel that the crowd was astonished. When he was finished, they all were silent for a moment, then stood up and applauded him for a long time. He did with what he could only be done with 4 strings on 3 strings, and did it even better. After the applause, he stood up and he held up his the bow from the violin to speak to the people, and he said, "It's come to my attention that the task of an artist is to continue on when," oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the phrase. It's it's when you've lost something, you continue on to use what you have lost. And I think that's a great line. When I've lost something, you continue to go on and do your best without it, with what you have lost, with what you have left. And I think that's what the scriptures are telling us tonight, that St. Paul says in his weakness, he wanted to show forth the power of God. When he could recognize that he did not have the personal ability to do what God was asking him, he knew that God would give him the strength. When I look over the years of my own ministry, I've encountered many, many people who were part of the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And how do they stay sober? They first of all rely upon the grace of God, and one day at a time, and then they help others to do the same. They let their light shine to others so that they too can recover. Or if you think about the people that are ill or depressed or poor or grieving from the loss of a loved one, or any kind of difficulties that we could have, what do? We rely upon the power of God to give us the strength where we don't have it anymore. And the power of Jesus is so great that he will give us that strength. We have to trust that. I was thinking about it myself, that when I came here to St. Patrick's almost 5 years ago now, I came in weakness, fear, and trembling. I really did. So much aware of my own inadequacy, but over the many years of the priesthood, I've learned firsthand from experience, placing it in God's hands, all things are possible. And if we truly believe that, and if we can do that every day, whatever we're going through, to place it in God's hands, all things are possible, and the power of God can prevail. It may take a while. And then probably the answer too, if you've lost a loved one. What do so many people do when they're grieving so badly? They go out and help somebody else who has lost a loved one, because you've been there. Somebody with economic difficulties can feel that they've only got 3 strings to play with now, and it's very difficult. And what do many of them do? They go out and help someone else who's in a similar strait because they've been there. And I think we can say that for ourselves, can't we? It's much easier for me to be sympathetic with people who have problems because I've had the same problem, and I know what it's like. And I think that's what Jesus is saying to us. We're supposed to be a light to the world, a light to the world. Let our good deeds show and shine in the darkness of this world. And we have so many opportunities. The first reading reminded us that we should feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and shelter the homeless. This weekend, we have an opportunity to do that for the people of the church in Latin America in our collection. What we can do to help those people will be letting the light of Christ shine to them. With all that we do as a parish and helping those in need, especially through our hunger center, we're doing the same thing. Because maybe we too have been hungry at one time. And we see that next week in Catholic Charities, we'll be asked to renew our annual commitment to Catholic Charities. And at first you might say, Father, you've been asking for money every week in a row. No, I'm not. I'm just advertising the need. I'm just saying, here's the need. And if everybody does something, we can be the light to the world and the help to others. So the scripture reading tonight is pretty practical. God shines through our weakness. And when we feel so helpless that it's impossible, everyone would know that you can't play a symphonic piece with an orchestra with 3 strings on a violin. But with the help of God, it's possible. And so we have to be the same way in our lives, that what may seem impossible, we place it into God's hands, let him give us the help that we need.